Welcome to Sac Taff. Last week I got up to the fifth chapter of A Sacrifice of a Lifetime, which is basically the end part of the end of the first part. So that is really, it's really encouraging actually. And so second and third part at the time, I've got to actually look for the whole book because I've put all the parts together and turned it into one book. But in the beginning, the only way that I could do it was in three parts. So this is how I got the second part together. I think I've already showed you. It's just manuscripts. Just manuscripts. I used to cut up and then put a punch hole at the top and put some string through. I used to sell it like that, but cover it with plastic to protect the paper. Yeah, so basically I've got to, so we're on chapter 6. And Rebecca continued to help her father in the shop. In fact, she was so efficient that Mr. Barracu soon felt able to leave her in charge on her own. She always was more confident when she was left alone. And she often felt nervous when a member of the family were around in case she made a silly mistake that they would find amusing. So she wasn't all that confident, and it's mainly due to issues that she's faced with her peers and so on and so forth. It's just made her just a little bit not very confident. So in the presence of her father or brother, for example, she would become cautious, and her hesitant behaviour and nervous disposition would communicate themselves to the customers. So business was usually most brisk in the morning. Rebecca would eat her lunch in the shop after the morning rush. She sat in the stall behind the counter, savouring the warmth of the sun through the window and watching the people walk by in their colourful summer clothes. And she always wore old jeans and T-shirts to work with a small overall, which would tie up at the sides for comfort in the shop, and would wear trainers. At times like this, she often wished that she herself was outside in pretty clothes rather than inside watching the passers-by. So one Monday lunchtime, the telephone suddenly rang and she jumped off the stall to answer it. "Hello," she said, "domestic supplies. Hello, is Mr. Joyce there, please?" It was a man's voice. "Mr. Joyce?" "Yes." "I'm sorry, there's no one here of that name. I think you have the wrong number." "Oh, do I?" The caller sounded disheartened. "So who have I rung?" he asked. "It's a hardware store." "So where are you based?" "A few minutes away from Earlsfield train station." "Oh, I see. It's a nice day today, though, isn't it?" He no longer seemed concerned that he had got the wrong number, and he seemed to be making polite conversation by the way of apology for disturbing her. "Yes, it's a lovely day," agreed Rebecca. "So what's your name?" "I don't really want to tell you." So why not?" "Because I don't know who you are." I'll tell you what. To make you feel better, I'll tell you mine. My name's Andrew. And to make you feel even better, I'll pop around to the shop in the week so you can see what I look like." "Okay." "And my name's Rebecca," she said innocently before putting the receiver down and smiling to herself while thinking about the conversation that had just taken place. She did not take the call very seriously, but 3 days later, a man entered the shop while she was serving a customer and waited patiently for her to finish. "Hello," he said. "My name's Andrew." The announcement took her by surprise. "Hello," she managed as she realised that the man standing in front of her was the unknown person she had spoken to earlier in the week. As soon as she stood behind the till, she began to feel embarrassed. Andrew stood directly in front of her, almost examining her. "So you must be Rebecca," he said. "Yes," she said weakly. He was not at all what she had imagined. She had pictured a much rougher type of a man. Andrew was tall, out of average physique, with dark complexion and well-groomed hair. He must have been in his mid-20s. She liked his looks, but his gruesome dress sense did not appeal to her. He wore a pair of flared brown trousers with thick, thin ribbed imprinted on the material, and an open neck beige shirt. Most importantly, however, he appeared to be a friendly person. And this was something Rebecca admired in people. She felt it easy to respond to people who were friendly towards her. "So, who owns this shop?" "My father. It must be nice to have a family business." Rebecca noticed that he was clutching the car keys in his hands. So what time do you finish work? He asked. 6 o'clock. My dad comes back to the shop just before 6, or sometimes early, depending on whether he has some stock in on him. Then he takes me home. Would you like to go out for a drink with me on the weekend? Saturday evening, perhaps? Andrew asked politely. Rebecca hesitated. Andrew did not seem her ideal man, but she would probably not get a better offer. She was intrigued by the situation. Whoa, the way that I've written here, because I remember, and Andrew wasn't the type of person that, you know, she would really want to go out with. But it says here, probably, but she would probably not get any better. So, and was intrigued by the situation, and that's just basically dangerous, really. I mean, thinking about it. And it's also a sign of low self-esteem, thinking that, oh, you know, might as well just, you know, take the offer because probably nobody else is going to ask or something like that. So that's quite sad, though, isn't it, really? But I guess that's how she was feeling. And again, it relates to, if you've been following what me sharing about Sacrifice of a Lifetime, it relates to certain situations that had come up as regards to her peer group and basically making her feel like, you know, there was something wrong with her or this, that, what have you. You know, it basically, you know, resulted in her having low self-esteem. So anyway, okay then, she said, what time Saturday? About 8 o'clock. I'll give you my work number. You can call me tomorrow afternoon to make sure that it's still okay to meet up. All right then. As soon as Andrew left the shop, Rebecca's inattention began to subside. She knew that she wanted to experience an adult relationship with a man. Oh dear me, yeah. And she did not want to involve herself with a boy, but with a mature man like Andrew who would know how to develop the relationship. Yeah, so basically, this has all come about because if you've followed me, like I say, when I got to chapter 5, round about then, that's when she was more engrossed in books, romantic books and things like that. And so it was basically making her more aware of herself. And she's starting getting ideas about, oh, you know, having a relationship or something like that. So she's got to the point now where it's like, no, you know, she doesn't want to have a boy because, you know, nah, they're too immature. She wants to have a relationship with a man where she feels like, you know, she's going to be treated a lot better. And yeah, he'll know how to develop the relationship and this, what have you. And she's still very young. I think at the time she's still like 15 and a half. I'm sure she's about 15 and a half. Yeah. Yeah, so on Friday afternoon, Rebecca telephoned Andrew at his office. She realised that she did not know his surname, but she need not have worried because he picked up the phone himself. The conversation was short and to the point. Andrew speaking. Hi, it's Rebecca. How are you? So on and so forth. Anyway, they agreed to meet up. And then, you know, she said, can you pick me up around the corner from where I live? Of course, just give me the direction. So as soon as Rebecca got home from work on Saturday, she ran upstairs, got herself together, put on her best jeans and t-shirt, combed her hair out. Before she knew it, it was 8 o'clock. She could quickly put on her shoes and took on the last, looked in the mirror took a last look in the mirror to check that her lipstick had not smudged. Then she ran downstairs to the living room to say goodbye to her parents, but she didn't tell them exactly. I'm getting hot and sweat, and it's pretty warm in here. I'm going to take off my jacket. It's quite warm. I should have opened up the window as well, honestly. It's getting hot. Yeah, so yeah. So she didn't tell her parents what she was doing or where she was. She didn't tell them exactly where she was going or who she was meeting. She was lucky to have parents who trusted her, and she had always returned home on time, and they respected her judgment. But of course, they did not know she was looking for a grown-up relationship. She left the house and walked towards the arranged meeting point, wondering whether Andrew would turn up. Then, with a feeling of relief, she caught the sight of the car parked on the other side of the road. She quickly joined him. And so he asked, did you want to go? And so on and so forth. She wasn't sure, but then he said, how about wine bar? She'd never been to wine bar before, of course, because she's only 15 and a half. Andrew doesn't know this, though. He hasn't really asked her age. I remember at that age, you know, with girls, sometimes they look a bit older than they are, especially when they're putting a little bit of makeup and what have you. So he's probably thinking she's about, I would say about maybe like 17, 18, something like that. Because he never asked her. And he wouldn't have, you know, if he had thought she was just 15 and a half, no way would he take her. I don't think he would have, you know, taken her to a wine bar. In public, giving her a 15-year-old alcohol. I don't think so. So he must have thought she was a lot older, or even just a few years older anyway. So so Andrew drove her out, uttering a word. Rebecca, who could not think of anything to say, also kept quiet. The only conversation was within her mind. She looked out the window at the people, the shops and the cars. Andrew drove through Norbury into Streatham. In Streatham High Street, he spoke for the first time. This looks like a nice wine bar. Let's go in here. So Rebecca nodded. She was beginning to feel nervous. Andrew parked the car in a side road and turned the engine off. Then he slowly turned towards Rebecca to give her a kiss. Because this was her first serious date, she was unaccustomed to such behaviour. And that doesn't normally go. I mean, if you're going to go on a first date, before you've even started the date, that doesn't happen. That doesn't really happen, does it? I mean, even in this day and age, that doesn't really happen, does it? Maybe, I don't know, but you know, he just seemed weird anyway that he'd done that anyway. Andrew kissed her on the lips, but she could not respond because she had no strong feelings towards him. Well, you know, it's the first time they're going on a date, and she found the sensation of his lips unappetizing. She noticed that a young man was walking past, so she pulled away from Andrew. Come on, he said, let me give you another kiss. Obviously, if you go on a first date and you go towards them to kiss them, I mean, it's just not a very good, I don't know, it's just not all that appropriate, is it? If you're trying to impress someone, and you've got respect for someone and you really would like to get to know the person, that's not what you do, right? And then the person's pulling back and then you go and say, oh, come on, let me give you a kiss. It's not something that, if you really want to impress someone, you wouldn't go ahead and do that. So obviously he doesn't want to. He doesn't. But Rebecca's still young. She doesn't get it. She's still young, and yeah, so there you go. Where am I now? Yeah, so anyway, Rebecca says quickly, should we go to the wine bar? She was feeling distinctly uncomfortable with the situation. Her first visit to a wine bar was an exciting experience. She found it pleasant to be pleasant and a comfortable place. Andrew went straight to the bar and bought a bottle of wine, which was placed on a tray along with 2 glasses. He asked her where she wanted to sit. Let's go downstairs, she suggested. A waitress, seeing them carrying the tray downstairs, told them that this was the toilets. That was where the toilets were situated. So, feeling embarrassed, they went back up the stairs and were lucky to find an unoccupied table. Andrew began to pour the wine into the glasses. Rebecca picked up her glass and took a ladylike sip. There was not much conversation between them, so Rebecca began to observe her surroundings. The room had no particular features and was painted olive green and white. She continued to sip the wine, and before long she found her mind beginning to drift away. And I wonder why. Yeah, so, oh dear, it looks like we've finished the bottle of wine. This is what Andrew says. I'll just go and get another bottle. Oh my goodness. He had spoken so little that the words came as a bit of a shock. She could not understand how they could have got through a bottle of wine in such a short time, especially since she had only had 2 glasses and the second glass was not yet finished. What I've written something here. What have I written? Yeah, what I've written here is nowadays, like if you're going to go out with somebody and you don't know them, and you agree to go on a date. One, now it's not a good idea to ask them to pick you up unless you know them, or and say like they maybe they work at you work with them, they're like a colleague or something like that, and that's not always a good idea either. I just feel like now it's not a good idea to do that. Just meet up with them. You make your own way to wherever it is you're going to meet up. They make their own way there. But anyway, nowadays you just got to be extra careful. And then you're sitting down with someone that you don't know anything about. They're buying you the wine, and basically, again, nowadays you have to be careful because, unfortunately, if someone wants to progress a situation and the other person doesn't, then sometimes, unfortunately, you just have to be careful with your drink, because unfortunately it happens where people can put something in your drink and before you know it, do you know what I mean? Yeah, and you sort of lose sight of whatever's going on and so on and so forth, and unfortunately people can get harmed that way. So we do need to be careful, because I'm reading this, and all of this happened a few years ago, but things have changed now, so we just have to be extra careful, because I don't want to be reading this. And also I'm going to rewrite the book, and while I'm talking to you now, I'm probably going to have to add a few things in there for people to sit down and really, think about the situation. In order for people, because sometimes you can read a story and you can watch a film and get ideas from it, sort of think, oh, that's a good idea, and so on and so forth. But this was written a while ago. Nowadays we do need to be careful who we date. And again, you're with a stranger, and they're sort of like taking control of what you're drinking, and so on and so forth. You just got to be extra vigilant and careful. And nowadays, when people go on dates, sometimes what they do is they tell a good friend that, one, it's important to know where you're going, so that you can say to a friend, this is where I'm going, and so on and so forth. And two, sometimes, if people are a bit unsure about who they're going to go on the date with, one, it's important to meet in a public place, and two, their friend might come along with them, but sort of sit in the corner where the person that they're on the date with, they're not aware of it, so their friend's just making sure that they're okay and nothing sort of basically that their friend is safe at the end of the day. And then instead of letting the person that you're on the date with take you home, they can say, no, it's all right, I'll make my own way home, I'll get a cab, or nowadays a Uber or something like that. We just got to be extra careful. So me writing this, I've got to be also careful, so that while people are reading it, one, we have to realise that this happened a few years ago, and now we have to take extra precaution. We have to be careful, don't we? Yeah. So Andrew was soon back at the table, topping up her glass. She was getting more and more confused about what was going on, but at the same time she started to feel relaxed. Her earlier uneasiness had largely disappeared. Shall we make a move in a minute? She suddenly heard Andrew ask. She glanced at him and nodded. Will you be able to walk properly? This seemed a strange question to ask. But when she stood up, she had lost her balance Andrew came to her rescue by placing his arm around her waist as he guided her to the door and headed for the car. He opened the car door with one hand and held Rebecca tightly with the other, and eventually placed her on the seat. She sat there relieved, and that she was in a comfortable position in the safety of the car. You know, dear me. I mean, it's looking back, it's like, whoa, really? Yeah, anyway, it just goes to show how much has changed and how much, you know, we just can't do things as people used to do years ago. You've got to be so vigilant and just really be careful, very, very careful. I'm looking at the book while I'm talking to you, apologies. Yeah, so I'm just seeing how much more time I've got. Andrew drove off into the night, and then all of a sudden Rebecca realised that they had stopped. She was far too intoxicated to observe where she was, except that they were in a car park, presumably near to Andrew's home. And he turned to face her, leaned his body forward and kissed her. At that precise moment, she began to feel ill from the effects of the wine. She then realised that Andrew was undoing her jeans and trying to remove them. It must be admitted that her motive in going out with Andrew was to develop more of an adult relationship, but not like this. That wasn't the intention, you know. And normally when you go on the first date, your intention isn't one that, you know, that before you've even started the date, the guy there, the person that you're with, is going to kiss you. You basically pull yourself away, and then they go, oh, come on, give me a kiss, one. And then two, to sort of like overload the person with alcohol. And then three, now they've stopped in a remote place, and this is what he's doing. So it's like, no. Yeah, so yeah, it's not something that she wanted. She didn't want something like that to take place like that, put it that way. And however, she was too drunk to say anything. Yeah, so she slowly watched his reactions turn to frustration when he began to realise that because of her lack of cooperation, he was getting nowhere. I think I'm going to be sick. This is Rebecca. Andrew quickly got out the car and opened the door for her. As soon as both feet were on the ground, she threw up. Andrew placed her on the curb and she sat there feeling dizzy. Are you all right now? He asked anxiously. Yes. Okay, then I'll help you up. She was still too drunk to control her balance, so Andrew had placed her into the car and drove her home. She had sobered up quite a bit by the time they reached Thornton Heath. I don't remember sobering up quite a bit, but I guess, you know, throwing up made her feel better. That's probably what she means. That's probably what I meant. And she did not want her parents to see her in a state of disorder if they were still up. I'll give you a call on Monday, said Andrew. Rebecca walked slowly through the front gate and up to the porch of her home, and she entered the house more quickly, rushing from one side of the passage wall to the other along the corridor leading to the toilet. She urgently needed to, spend a penny, and she then proceeded back to the passage and headed for the stairs. Within moments, she was safe in her bedroom. She managed to undress, put on a nightie, then slid into her bed, where she quickly dozed off. Yeah, so that is her experience of going on the first date at the age of 15 and a half. Not a nice experience at all. Not a nice experience. Not a nice experience at all. And I feel as though because she went through that, it basically gave her more insight as regards to it opened her eyes as regards to the opposite sex, even though not all first dates end up like that. That was horrible for a first date. There was a time where she met somebody else, though, and I'm surprised I didn't write it in here, but I may have. Maybe it might come along further on where I reflect back. And I remember, I can't remember exactly where I met this person, and he was a younger boy. He must have been about a year or two older than Rebecca. So he must have been about 16, 17. And I remember she was talking to him in the park, and he wanted to meet up with her, and they agreed to meet up somewhere in Croydon. And she turned up, but saw him at a distance. And she basically looked at him, and she didn't really like what he was wearing, but that wasn't it that put her off. It was, she looked at his shoes, and she just didn't like his shoes, and thought, no, I just don't want to get involved with this person, and decided to go home. And then looking back, I remember sometimes looking back, sort of thinking, yeah, I think I made the right decision. Not because of the shoes. I just feel as though, you know, I just feel like it was a good idea just not to sort of get involved with that person. It would have been a good idea as well with this particular person, but she decided to, I think because he was older, she expected him to do better than what had just happened on that first day. That's not what she expected. And so there you go. So that's part of chapter 6. And yeah, I just find it quite amazing that for the first part, it was a reflection, and no, it was about things that she was going through with her peers. And then she's come up with a conclusion that she's going to have to learn how to deal with the situation that she faces, and now that she's sort of got to that point, she's now indulging in or wanting to get involved in relationships, you know, have a boyfriend or something like that. So it's just not weird, but it's part of life, isn't it? It's part of life. Yeah, so basically I'll finish there for this week, and then you know, continue and let you know what happens and what she learns from it. You know, does she see Andrew again? Do you think she's going to see Andrew again after that? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Don't we? Yeah, so so I hope that you are enjoying me sharing about the book A Sacrifice of a Lifetime. I do want to rewrite the book, and I am going to, and I look forward to bringing the book back out again. And the reason why I've shared before why I'm doing a podcast about the book is because some of the issues that I cover are quite controversial. And when I brought the book out and some people read it, they couldn't understand why I had written the book. They basically were some people a bit self-righteous and very critical about subjects that I speak about in the book. So I thought, you know what? There's a reason why I've written the book. And so what I'll do is, because I want to bring the book back out again, let me do a podcast about it so I can talk about it and share about it. And so that, you know, if people want to know a little bit more in detail about the book and why I decided to write the book, they can always watch the podcast. And I remember speaking to someone, like I shared before, how I've decided to do the podcast because, and they said there's always going to be people that are going to sort of have something negative or what have you to say about it. I am aware of that, but what I'm trying to do is just basically share a little bit more in detail about the issues that I talk about in A Sacrifice of a Lifetime, just to give a bit more insight to the character Rebecca Barracu, the decisions that she made and what she learned from them, And it's also, I'm beginning to see it's really nice sharing, with you as well. And while I'm sharing with you, I'm actually learning a little bit more about Rebecca Barracu, which is me in the book, that I basically didn't think of when I was actually writing the book, or if I was reading the book on my own, maybe how the things that I'm learning, I may not learn it in that way. I don't know if I'm making sense, because I'm still reading it to myself, but because I'm sharing it with you, there's certain things I'm hearing myself speak, and I'm somehow learning a little bit more about the situation, which is a good thing. It is a good thing. So normally if I've read something from the book and it relates to something a little bit traumatic or something like that, I do like to share something positive, so that if you're feeling like that, to realize that that's how you're feeling now, but it doesn't mean to say that you're going to be feeling like that all the time. It doesn't. Sometimes, unfortunately, we do have days when we're not feeling that great. But if we can work through those days and somehow have something positive to look and stay focused and sort of overcome the obstacle, when you look back, you'll see that it's actually made you stronger. You're actually looking at life a lot different, in a different way, in a more positive way, hopefully, so that when you meet somebody in that situation, you'll also be able to help them, by sharing that you understand to a certain degree, because you went through something similar or something like that and you overcame it, to look at things in a positive way. I don't think it's a good idea, because Rebecca's only 15 and a half, and for her to suddenly go through what she's experienced with her peers and then slowly start reading all these romantic books and seeing people having romantic relationships, and then all of a sudden that's what she wants. I don't think it's an appropriate age. I can't be telling anybody to do anything. I'm just saying, because I don't want people to hear what I'm saying and sort of say, oh really, oh, that's a good idea. I don't think it was a good idea to basically start indulging in wanting to have an adult relationship at that age, because he's still very young. I just don't feel it's a good idea. I feel like her going on a date with someone that she didn't know anything about. She's brought him near to where she lives, so now he sort of knows where she lives. He doesn't know anything about him. It's not really a good idea. She's got into his car. They've gone to a wine bar. It's quite a dangerous thing to do, especially in this day and age. You have to be very, very careful. And now she's drinking alcohol and she's underage, and he doesn't even know that. I'm sure, isn't it, that to drink alcohol you have to be 18, don't you? Yeah, and I'm there in a wine bar, 15 and a half, but I did look a bit older. That's why now I think it's important to ask for ID. Do they do that now when you go to, would a 15 and a half year old go to a wine bar? No, I don't. We just got to be so careful now, and I'm sure they ask for ID. So it's not a good idea. And then to now she's intoxicated, and now he's taken her into the car, driven her to a remote area. The car's stopped for him now to go ahead with his plan. And luckily she was so intoxicated, not luckily, I don't mean it like that, but his plan couldn't go ahead because she was feeling sick and she had to get out of the car. And basically, she threw up, and then he had to take her home. And that was her experience of 15 and a half of a first date. And that is something I would not recommend. Not a good idea. No. So I thought I'd just say that, because I feel as a writer, and as writers, we have a responsibility. I feel like we have a responsibility. I have a responsibility. And the reason why I want to write and is to share, but to share and to highlight certain issues but to highlight it with the fact that the issue was an obstacle, and to encourage people to see that you can overcome that obstacle. You can overcome it. You can, and my hands are sort of going like, you can overcome it. You know, we have to stay positive. And I'm just sharing certain things that I went through as a youngster, as a teenager. You know, and now Rebecca, the main character, is turning into a young woman. But it's just the way that she's, you know, her idea of walking in now the path of being a young woman isn't really, it's not really that great of an example. So that's why I'm sharing. And I feel like people have looked at the fact that I've shared about issues, and it wasn't that the situations that she put herself in were not very good situations. I'm sharing this to let people know it wasn't a very good situation. That's why I'm sharing. It's not like, wow, look at me, you know, I was 15 and a half and I went to Wimo, wow. And that's not what I'm sharing. No. You see, that's not what I'm sharing. You know, it wasn't a good idea, but that's the decision that she made, you know, and that's how it ended, and it wasn't a good idea. I'm not sharing about, wow, look at, you know, the main character. And I feel like people were sort of like reading it, sort of thinking that I was, you know, praising the situation and highlighting it and saying, well, you know, and that's, no. You know, that's, and some people didn't even finish the book. You know, you need to finish the story to see how the story ends, you know. So that's why I'm glad that when I share, say like I've shared today, then I can then basically then say it wasn't a good idea, instead of me finishing it and just saying, okay, next week, you know, I'll finish off the rest of the chapter and we might be able to get into chapter 7. No, it's like, let me reflect upon what I've just shared. Or let me reflect upon it. Let me reflect upon it, you know, so that you sort of like understand basically the fact that that's what she did and it wasn't a good idea. And it's very, in this day and age, it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to do as well. And the thing about Rebecca is that she does learn quickly. Some people don't learn and they keep on doing the same thing until the situation gets worse and worse and worse. And the more that you keep doing something that's not that great, the next time you do it, you sort of, your conscience doesn't, you know, it doesn't sort of bother you as much. And then you just get into a situation when you're just doing the same thing and you're not learning until you get to the point where years have gone past and you're trying to figure out, how comes I haven't got anywhere yet? You know, how comes this hasn't developed, or I'm not meeting the right people? Because we're just constantly making the wrong decisions over and over again, you know. So you'll see, you know, what happens to the character, and you'll see how she learns, and, you know, and so on and so forth. Okay, so if you would like to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is Roslyn1325. My Facebook is Roslyn Roberts. I'm on X as A_author. A_author. I can't even remember it properly. Let me. Normally I can remember. For the last few weeks, I have remembered. For some reason, I can't. Yeah, and I've normally, look. You can look at my bag's full on the floor. I need to write it down. It's A_RR Roberts. I think that's what it is. And I think it's A_author_RR Roberts, something like that. I need to write it down so it's in front of me. And then my YouTube is Welcome Roslyn Roberts. And again, my podcast is Sac Taff. So, look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.